the first couple years, he was the one that not they all, the political context is that there's a strong group of people in the Congress who are moderates. They are the majority. We've had this disagreement with Great Britain, with Parliament, when its right to tax, and now the right to legislate even. But we cannot afford to break with the king and go to war against the mightiest military force on earth. We have no chance. Therefore, Adams is perceived as a troublemaker because Adams is pushing the radical agenda. And he has to learn how to conduct himself down there in a way that makes him less obnoxious. Because it's frustrating when he keeps saying things that keep coming true, you know, and you always get mad at him, you know. And that, his role as the leader, along with his cousin, Sam Adams, if you've ever seen the play 1776, it accurately tells that story. And it's got some inaccuracies in it, but the leading character is John Adams. And so that, and then when the war starts, and it really, notice, the war starts a year and a half, or 15 months before we formally declare independence. The war starts at Lexington and Concord in April of '75. Obviously, the independence is not fully declared until July of '76. He's really becoming manager of the military force by early summer. And
why did they give that to him?
It's not clear. He's just the major figure, and he's the leader in the Congress by that time. Especially once they declare independence, there's certain people who were leaders like Dickinson who leave, who don't feel they can serve anymore. Though Dickinson goes to serve in the militia in his own state, he's the most prominent figure. Okay, but his finest hour, you know, like Churchill, this is our finest hour, is in '76, '77, when we could easily have lost the war, and God knows what would have happened. And he's sort of holding it all together, and he's working 23-hour days. He's running a marathon at the pace of a sprinter, and he's simultaneously keeping in touch with his family, worrying about their smallpox inoculations. It's the most interesting part of his life.
Right. It was interesting that he's worrying about smallpox inoculation around the Boston area and simultaneously with the Washington's army.
That's right. The most important strategic decision that Washington made during the entire war wasn't in a particular battle. It was the decision to inoculate the Continental Army. Yeah. And you couldn't, after a certain state, you couldn't get into the Army until you had already run through the inoculation process.
Yeah. That was new stuff in those days.
Absolutely.
Came up 1775.
The British and Hessian and Scottish troops on the other side, they had some problem with smallpox, but most of them had built up over generations immunities because they were more exposed over there. Right. So that the rate of smallpox in the British Army was not very high, but they could spread it to other places.
Right.
Some people thought smallpox was bad. First of all, you know, there about a 1 or 2% fatality rate from the inoculation, but that they thought the people that were inoculated then gave it to other people.
Right. Right.
So what Washington did with Adams suggested it, Washington did it. Benjamin Rush was in on that decision too, later great doctor and psychiatrist. But once again, he's ahead of the curve. He's ahead of the curve, ahead of what most other people are thinking.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.